welcome to Inside Edition to discuss national, regional and international issues in depth. In the Kingdom of Bahrain, the engineering sector is witnessing constant growth and vast development on various aspects, as it plays an essential role combined with great contributions to the national comprehensive development of industrial, construction, investment and business sectors, with the aim of developing and improving the professions of engineering in the Kingdom for various specializations through ensuring that only qualified and competent engineers are licensed to practice the engineering performance. Bahrain Council for regulating the practice of engineering professions was established. For more about the Council's role and achievements, we are pleased to be joined here in the studio by the chairperson of Bahrain Council for regulating the practice of engineering professions, Engineer Maryam Ahmed Jam'an, who is bringing with her over 35 years of experience in the engineering field, which included being appointed as a member of the Supreme Council of Women since 2010 and becoming the first female fellow of the IET in the Middle East and North Africa region, as well as a member of the Institution of Engineering and Technology and a chartered engineer since 2002, making her the first Bahraini female electrical engineer to gain that status. Welcome back to the studio. Joining me here is Engineer Maryam Jam'an. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for having it.
Engineer Maryam, one of the things that Bahrain has constantly developed in is the field of engineering, with new fields of engineering coming to light every single day. You yourself are an electrical engineer, but also we look at the vast number of engineers that have come now with the sustainable development era and with even energy conservation and that kind of stuff. What can you tell us about the development and the growth of the engineering sector specifically?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for having us this evening. For us in the Council for the Regulation of the Practice of the Engineering Profession, it's important that we keep up with the trends that are happening in the engineering sector, and we make sure for us in the Council that anybody operating in that sector or working in that sector, functioning in that sector, has the proper qualification, has the proper educational qualifications, and can operate in a proficient manner. That's where the role of the Council comes in, to make sure that all engineers are licensed and can work in a proficient manner.
Yeah, and do you find that it's like more of like a vouching for these engineers when they have the licenses from your regulation?
Absolutely. I mean, this is what we're trying to do, and this for us is a key aspect of our role moving forward, is to ensure that every single engineer who operates in Bahrain, whether you're operating in the public sector, whether you're an engineer in the private sector, whether you're an engineer in an engineering office, it's important that you're licensed by the Council, and that ensures to the community at large that an engineer who has a license from the Council has gone through the checks and balances that needs to be done to ensure that that engineer has the right qualifications.
Yes, and this of course pertains to Bahrainis as well as non-Bahraini engineers that are working within the country.
Absolutely.
The Bahrain Council for Regulating the Practice of Engineering Professions contributed to achieving the National Vision 2030 as well as the United Nations 2030 SDG goals. What can you tell us about their movement within these two contexts?
Okay, so Vision 2030 was built on 3 pillars. You've got sustainability, fairness, and competitiveness. Now for us, for government as a whole, all of the SDGs are priorities, and a cabinet resolution established a section within government to monitor Bahrain's achievement of the SDGs and the SDG objectives. For us in the CRPEP, our role feeds into that bigger picture. So when you look at our licensing process, we do checks and balances to make sure that qualifications are correct. So it goes out into the wider community that a below par education will not be accepted. We work very closely with the Ministry of Education and the Higher Education Council. Any engineer coming with an international qualification needs to be checked out with the Ministry of Education to ensure that their programs are accredited. They feed into us as a CRPEP those outputs, and we take them and we look at them within the engineering context and where that engineer will be working, and we make sure that those are all fed out into the bigger engineering sector. So if you look at the SDG specific goals, like for example quality education, all of that goes out to the community that you need a quality education to be able to practice as an engineer. If you look at the SDG specific of clean and sustainable energy, our engineers, any engineer practicing at EWA, for example, needs to be licensed by the CRPEP, and that ensures that these engineers are going to be able to perform well and perform within, for example, if I talk about the EWA context, well, to enable those ministries to achieve the SDGs. So we're part of almost like a jigsaw puzzle. Our qualifications and our checks that we do, and they are very thorough checks. I can explain them a little bit later, but we do checks to make sure that all engineers who are operating in Bahrain are licensed by the Council and that they can do their work in a proper manner. The other thing that we also that will help with Bahrain achieving the SDGs is that we also license engineering offices. So when you make sure that any engineering office that operates in Bahrain has the right number of staff, has the right number of has the space, has the equipment to enable them to do their jobs properly, making those engineering offices having ample opportunities for Bahrainis to work with them. Giving that another SDG, which, feeding into the SDG of making sure you've got decent work opportunities. So our role is more of a part of the bigger puzzle. So we do not have a specific initiative that we work with, but we give a foundation to all engineers operating out there that are helping ministries, authorities, private sector, public sector, help Bahrain achieve the SDGs.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
When it comes to your job as a regulatory authority, that means a lot of statistics come in.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of numbers there, even the ones that talk about how many engineers we have and what fields are they in. Do you use that kind of information in order to collaborate, like for instance with the Ministry of Education on future job prospects that are needed, or getting students that are within the engineering courses now to develop into a certain or specialize in a certain field?
Those statistics we have because, like I said before, every engineer that needs to work in Bahrain has to have a license from the council. We've more than doubled the numbers since 2014 with the establishment of the council. It used to be 3,000 plus engineers. Right now we have 6,000, nearly 6,500 engineers licensed. And those numbers need to go up. We do collect statistics, and this will be part of our KPIs moving forward, is to see how we can keep up with making sure engineers not only just get licensed, but they also progress within that license. So for us at the CRPEP, for example, if you start off as a let's say a fresh graduate engineer, you're a Cat D.
Okay.
Then after 4 years, you can become a Cat C. To Cat A, and Cat A engineers, which is like category A engineers, have 12 plus years. So even for employers, when they come and see your license from the CRPEP as a Cat A, they know what level you are. Cat B, and they know what level you are. So we're trying to keep up with those statistics and ensure that engineers, the minute they graduate, they can be licensed, and that experience is counted for. I do not think that there is a lack of motivation, if you want to call it, for people to go into engineering, because people do know that an engineering degree opens up prospects for you. You don't need to work in engineering, but an engineering degree does give you a strong background to work in any sector.
How about a specialized engineering aspect?
Specialized engineering aspects, we need to work with them, and we do work with the Ministry of Education. Ministry of Education, we have a very close collaboration with them, because we feed into them and they feed into our checks and balances. With the Higher Education Council, we do have we are represented in one of the committees at the Higher Education Council, and what we do what the Higher Education Council requires is that every institution in Bahrain, for engineering degrees, for example, which is what concerns us as the CRPEP, the programs are accredited, the institutions are accredited. So there is no lack of motivation to go in engineering. I think it's a matter of making sure that those outcomes now feed into the bigger picture to ensure that you do have a good mix of the different engineering specializations.
Absolutely. And women in Bahrain have achieved a lot of prospect when it came to engineering and different specialization, and they were honored by the kingdom recently as they celebrated women in the engineering field in recognition of their role and contributions. How do you value that role in addition to its stages of development and the challenges that were faced by women to achieve these?
So I'm a member of the Supreme Council for Women since 2010, and I've seen the role that the Supreme Council for Women has done for women in engineering and all the other professions. So I believe that the Supreme Council for Women has played a very prominent and pivotal role to ensure that women in all professions have a fair ground to work, to prosper, to progress, and to reach leadership positions. So what they do with celebration of Women's Day every year, they take a specific profession and a specific topic of specialization, and they focus on it. And 2017 was the year of women in engineering, and there was throughout the year 2017 focus groups to look at the achievements of women in engineering and celebrate those, as well as the obstacles facing women in engineering throughout their progression, throughout their career. And we saw, I was part of a number of the focus groups, and there is no lack of motivation for women to enter into the STEM. So more than 50% of graduates from the University of Bahrain were female. But those numbers never translated to on the ground work. So if we look at the numbers in the public sector and in the private sector. We saw that it was less than that. So we looked at the obstacles facing, and I think a lot of the work that has been done by the Supreme Council for Women has helped women progress and remove some of those obstacles that are being faced. We in the CRPEP, I believe we can play also an important role in that, is to support women throughout their career so that there is not a high attrition rate of women leaving the career of engineering. And the way we can do that is to encourage women in engineering to have their professional registration.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you have a very strong building block for females that they can progress their career,
right,
and they can have, you know, ample opportunities to have different work prospects, lessening a little bit the attrition rate and getting out of the engineering field.
Right.
So we have a supportive role.
Right.
What the Supreme Council for Women has done was something, laid a strong foundation, and we support that.
Yeah. It makes actually a lot of sense, because one of the obstacles that are faced is that engineering has always been perspective as a male-dominant field, but with the same licensing given to both male and female, that basically gives the strength to work on. Do you guys also like push for do you help out when it comes to accrediting women within certain licensing programs that are needed within Bahrain?
So there's no difference for us. I mean, I look at the qualification. I never look at what gender they are. For me, it's a qualification. It's making sure that those qualifications are up to world standards. They're from accredited programs. So it's not just accrediting a university, but the program within the university. Making sure those programs are accredited. So for me, I don't really look at the gender. But what I'm saying is to support male and female engineers to have that choice, if you want to call it, of moving from employer to employer, of going up the ladder, of getting to a leadership position. We encourage you, first of all, to get your license from the CRPEP, but at the same time think of professional qualifications, because when you do that, you're looking at a qualification which is a worldwide standard. And then you can, an employer would look at that qualification and know where you are in terms of experience, in terms of projects that you've done and things like that.
Understood. Yeah. How about, I mean, the standards that are put for the licensing here? What are they? Can you tell us a little bit about those?
So we have to make sure you are from a qualified university, from a qualified program. So now we are encouraging as well. So you need to, if you're an engineer, and this is probably a message that I would really strongly like to get out from this program, is that every single engineer needs to be licensed to work. Per law 51 of 2014, you cannot practice engineering in Bahrain without the license from the CRP. Make sure that all this message goes out to everyone, and that it is all engineers graduate and come and get their license. We encourage them as well to renew that license yearly, because that's what we ask for. And then we have these categories that I just mentioned earlier. You have a Cat A, B, C, and D. So a starting engineer would have a Cat D license, and then they go up the ladder.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And are there any requirements that, I mean, other than the degree itself, are there any requirements that they have to do in order to get the license?
So no, basically, so if they come, they'd be getting a Cat D, for example. Let's say somebody comes and says, I want to get a Cat C. So then the council has the, let's say, the checks to say, okay, to get to a Cat C, you need to have worked 4 years. So, and then if you need to go to a Cat B, then you need to have a number of years. For expatriate engineers, we need to make sure that they have the right qualifications as well, and the right license from their country, wherever they were working before. They need to have been licensed over there and also had the checks and balances before coming to work in Bahrain. So we do have, and these are all, by the way, mentioned in our executive regulations, which are available on the website. So you can, anybody who wants to come and get the license can go and see what we check.
In performing its duty, the Council deals with several local institutions. You mentioned the Ministry of Education as one of them. How do you value these cooperations, and what other institutions do you cooperate with?
So we work with a lot of the local institutions. We work very closely with the Ministry of Education, because whatever comes out from the, so let's say a graduate engineer comes from an international institution, they would go to the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education would check their qualification. They would get the check, and then they'd come to us to be licensed and registered. We work very closely, or we are even in a committee with the Higher Education Council. What we're saying is that any institution in Bahrain of higher education that would give an engineering program needs to have the right program.
Right.
That program needs to be accredited, so that engineers coming out of that program and fed into the local market needs to have the right qualifications.
Absolutely.
So we work closely with them. We work very closely with the University of Bahrain. So we go and talk to the graduate students and tell them the importance of getting your license once you're graduated. So we deal with the University of Bahrain. We talk to ministries and authorities and the big companies, the private companies like the GPIC, ELBA, BABCO. Their engineers need to be licensed.
Right.
Because if they are not licensed, their experience doesn't count, because you have not been licensed by the CRPEP. Right. So we talk to all, these are all our stakeholders. We talk to them, we make sure everybody is aware of the message that the CRPEP is getting out. One of our roles in the CRPEP is to ensure that standards are kept, that if there are any obstacles facing the profession, that we can support the engineering officers face those obstacles. So we talk to the likes of Tamkeen to see how we can have programs that support the engineering community. So yes, we do have a large number of stakeholders, and all our plans moving forward is to continue that work and to see how we can improve standards and how we can support the engineering community at large.
Yes.
Both engineers and everybody working within that sector.
Yes. And like the obstacles that are faced by people that don't have their engineering license either, because they've been working for a long time here and they just haven't gotten it renewed and everything. Do you feel more awareness has to be done in order to get them back on track? Absolutely.
I mean, this is one of our plans moving forward with this, with the new board coming in. We noticed, or we felt that there was the need for going out more and talking to the community at large, and talking to ministries and talking to industry and talking to all companies, private, public. Everybody needs to be licensed. Any engineer working in Bahrain needs to be licensed. Otherwise, your experience will not count. Yes. So we're getting that message, and I think if you see the numbers, the graph of the numbers that have changed, they've increased dramatically. We've increased it twofold. It was about 3,000 plus in 2014. We're over 6,000, nearly 6,500 right now. One of the key things that has helped this jump as well as another stakeholders with us is the CSP, because there was an issue, a decree that said all engineers working in the public sector need to be licensed, and that brought in a huge number of engineers to be licensed by the council. So we're moving in the right direction, but we still have to make sure every single engineer needs to be licensed, and that for us is our ultimate goal. Because at the end of the day, if you have licensed manpower, that also means that the institution itself has more validity and more truthfulness when it comes to working with the outside, with any kind of projects on the outside, right? Yeah. So can you tell us about the Council's cooperation as well as the exchange visits and expertise with regional and global institutions that happened actually not long ago? Yeah, in 2018, so for us, this is very important. I mean, we need to benchmark what Bahrain does. You're always comparing yourself and seeing where you stand on an international level. So for us, these visits are important. First of all, we need to benchmark ourselves and see where we stand, and at the same time, gain from others' experience. So in 2018, there was a visit to the Engineering Council in the UK, and this is the council which provides the professional registration for the UK engineers, and we're also part of that collaboration. So we've had talks with them to see how we can progress that within the Bahrain context. Yeah. There was a visit to Singapore to see the Singapore engineers and the Professional Engineers Board to see how they do their work and how they license their engineers. We've had a visit to the Saudi Council of Engineers to see how our neighbors do it closer to home. And it's different experiences in different contexts. In some, for example, for us in Bahrain, you have the Bahrain Society of Engineers. Now, the Bahrain Society of Engineers, registering with them is a choice. It's not mandatory. If you're an engineer, you can choose to be part of the Bahrain Society of Engineers, and you can choose not to be. It's probably good to be part of that. For the council, you need to be. It's mandatory if you want to practice as an engineer. In Saudi, for example, the Saudi Council of Engineers, they do both. It's the one entity that caters to the social aspect of the engineering as well as the professional registration. So it's good to have these visits. It's good to benchmark yourself and adapt what is right for Bahrain. And this will continue for us. We will continue to have these visits because I think it's important to gauge where we stand. And to always try and improve and see what we can do within the Bahrain context.
Improvement is a very good word that I want to start with. Do you improve on the standards? Do you keep on adding rules or policies when it comes to giving them the license? Do these things change over time?
So getting the license in and of itself is standard. I mean, you need to have the right education, you need to have specific number of years of qualification and experience. So those are, but there are other things where now we're looking to see, okay, where are the shortfalls? Where can we support the engineering sector to grow? Where can we improve standards? Where can we remove obstacles that are facing the Bahraini engineering firms or the firms operating in Bahrain? And yes, that of course necessitates that you review your law every now and then, you review your legislation every now and then, not that you do it every year, but that you do have periodic reviews like anything. Things change, the sector changes, the sector develops, and you need to keep up with that. And yes, we are doing a current review of our law that was issued in 2014, and hopefully a lot of the shortcomings that have come to light in that law will be improved. And that is a continuous process. You need to continue doing that. And part of those visits will tell us, okay, where are our shortfalls? I mean, and you operate within something for a number of years, and then you realize things have changed, things have moved on, and you need to keep up.
But the baseline is that any engineer that is to work on the ground of the Kingdom of Bahrain has to be licensed by this regulatory authority. My question is a hypothetical one. Now, let's say that a problem has arisen where the engineer in charge was not licensed. What is usually the next step that is taken, or how usually does this impact their case?
Yeah, so we do get, like the CRPEP is there to support the engineering community. What we trying, so our part of our stakeholders and part of the stakeholder message to go out is to tell people, so you have your stakeholder, the engineering community, and then you have the community at large. So the community at large, we tell the community, don't go to a non-licensed office. Don't go to a non-licensed engineer. And that is the message that we're trying to get across. Let's say something happens, then we do not, I don't know, it can happen. Fly-by-night people who do work. Hypotheticals. You would come to us, and then there are things which the CRPEP law does not give me a mandate to support. So if you go and take an engineer on your own who's not licensed, I will not be able to help you. I license the engineer, and I've put out the message that you should go to a licensed engineer. We do get complaints, for example, between an individual and an office. Sometimes that complaint will need to go to the courts because there are other entities in Bahrain that support the bigger picture. If there is a contract between, let's say, yourself as a client and an engineering office, it's that contract which governs where you stand as an individual. I, as a CRPEP, will not be able to intrude on that because then it's a court of law. But let's say what we can do, and which we do all the time, is go and do our inspection, because we are not just a licensing body, but we are a regulatory authority. So we do have the law, and we need to make sure that people are operating within that law. So we do inspections, and we have an inspection team that goes out and looks at the buildings and the houses that are being built. And the design office, or the office that needs to have people on the ground, so we go out and make sure that there are people on the ground supervising the work.
Yeah.
And when we do that, if there is, let's say we go to a site and there is no supervisory engineer, then there will be a violation on that, and we write to them and we work with our colleagues in the council, the municipal councils, to help with those inspections.
The council is also very keen to benefit from the widespread modern technologies and social media to serve its goals. How do you value the importance and efficiency of such approaches in reaching the community and spreading the awareness, especially that you have so many things to make people aware of? As you said, the licensing process, as you said, if you are having a business in Bahrain, is a business hub with a lot of real estate coming up, a lot of different buildings coming up, and even like within institutions themselves, improvements and so on are going on. So you need to know where to go to, who is licensed, and why they are the best choice.
Okay, so yes, we do realize, I mean, everybody now realizes the importance of social media and how it can put you in direct contact immediately with your stakeholders. And we do have a very strong and active social media presence. So we do have, we're active on Instagram, we're active on LinkedIn, we're active on YouTube, as well as Twitter. And we have our website. So if you want an engineering office that is licensed, you go to the website and you have all the engineering offices that are licensed. So it's available and we update it every week.
Beautiful.
So if there's an engineering office that has been, we remove them. So social media is one thing, and that keeps you in direct contact with you. But social media is only for your followers. So if we don't have the full community following you, you will not be able to get your message across. So that's where our web presence is important. But I still strongly believe in face-to-face and one-on-one contact. And that is where we have these visits, these workshops that I mentioned earlier, that you go to the University of Bahrain, that you go to the ministries, that you go to the companies, that you go to industry and you talk to them. And you tell them it's different when it's face-to-face. You reinforce the importance of getting your license, and you talk to them and you tell them, your engineers have to be licensed. Nobody can work in Bahrain without a license. So it's getting that message across. I think the one-on-one is still important, and it's something that we will continue doing. So it'll be like a two-pronged. We'll do on social media, and at the same time, we will continue our face-to-face.
And I'm guessing social media is also one of the tools that you use to assess your success as a regulatory authority. But how do you assess your success as a regulatory authority?
So there's different things. One of them would be the numbers, and you can see the trend. So I would still want to have a KPI that says every single engineer in Bahrain is registered. So that's one thing. The numbers are increasing. The numbers of engineers that go up, so from a Cat D to a Cat C. So that is also a measure of success, because it shows that engineers are aware and of the importance of the licensing, and that they are really feeding into their career building blocks and increasing, making sure employers know about that. For me, it's important. Like I said, we're not just licensed, but we regulate. Violations going down, the numbers would be a measure of my success. I want to make sure that there is no violations. Of course, you never get to zero, but a downward trend is important. Number of engineering offices that are licensed, that would be important, because that means the number of engineering opportunities available in Bahrain are big. The engineering offices are opening, and there's more work and more work opportunities for the Bahraini engineers. Those would be measures of success. So, and those are, by the way, all of part of our KPIs that we've put into our strategic plan, that we would like to make sure. Professional registration for me is very important. What we're trying to do, if we look at Vision 2030, Vision 2030 says Bahrainis will be the employee of choice for employers. I want the Bahrainis to not just be Bahraini engineers. I want them to be global engineers. That's for me one key measure of success, that I want them to be able to compete for work on a global scale. And the only way they can do that is to have this professional registration, and I want to increase that.
Right.
And that would be a measure of our success.
That is very commendable, especially that Bahrainis have reached so many high statuses internationally in other fields, even in the engineering field, but they're always not talked about that much. Does it get more difficult, before I ask you the last question, does it get more difficult to regulate or to accredit a company, let's say a GCC company in Bahrain, than it is to accredit a engineering company that is based in Bahrain or from Bahrain itself? Because Bahrain being a country, a business hub, a lot of companies internationally come here to set up their headquarters, and some of them bring their own contracting or their own engineering companies. Do you also accredit and evaluate these before they actually?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to clarify, the CRPEP, we license engineers, so engineers, any engineer working, as well as engineering offices.
Yes.
So it's the offices that do the design and the design work. Contractors, the actual work, we don't, but we license the engineers working with the contractors. So for us, it's a clear demarcation.
Their choice will matter.
Yeah, absolutely. So when an engineering firm comes and wants to operate in Bahrain, like I said, all of those conditions are available on the website. But we do encourage them, because we know that having international firm brings with it expertise, brings with it job opportunities. All we need to make sure as the CRPEP is that those companies are relevant, they have the relevant experience, and that they will bring something, let's say, niche experience to Bahrain and to the engineering community and to the sector.
Exactly. Well, at the end, I'd really like to know, what are the future plans and upcoming projects that are being prepared by the Bahrain Council for regulating the practice of engineering professions?
Yeah, so we have a lot of plans. We have a tenure of 3 years with this current board. We'd like to achieve a lot, but of course we've had to put priorities. For me, I want to improve my customer experience. So all engineers coming go through an application process. I want to make sure that that process is simple, it's automated. There is no footfall at the CRPEP offices, that you only need to come to our offices if you have a problem. So we're automating, and that for us is one of our key projects. I want to have another plan is to have this outreach, whether on social media or on the one-to-one. We want to go out and talk to all our stakeholders and make sure everybody realizes the importance of licensing. One of our key things has also been is to develop a collaboration with the International Engineering Council and the Institute, for example, of Civil Engineers, to institute a program in Bahrain ministries, private and public sector, to take the engineers through these professional qualifications, so that you can become an incorporated engineer, and then you can become a chartered engineer, and ultimately you can even achieve or aim for something higher like a fellow. So all of this for us is important. We've put in place, I just worked 3 or 4 weeks ago with the new board to formulate a strategy for us moving forward. And all of this was part of the strategy, and hopefully we can be able to achieve a lot of it within the coming 3 years, within the tenure of this board. We have the support of the leadership, and we have the support of the minister, so inshallah we can do a lot.
Inshallah. We've gotten to the end of the show. Is there anything that you would like to add here at the end?
Yeah, just okay. One thing, a key message would be, please make sure you're licensed by the council. If you're working as an engineer in Bahrain, you really need to be licensed. Number 2, I'd like to stress again the importance of professional registration, and that anybody can come to us for guidance and support, and we will institute hopefully institutionalize within the context of the CRPEP these professional registrations, because I do believe it's important to make sure that our engineers are global engineers and not just local engineers.
Well, I hope so too. Thank you so much for being with us today. And also at this point, any questions that any of you might have about what's going on the regulations and the standards, you can always visit the website of the engineering community to know what kind of things are needed in order to get these licensed things. Or you can send us at bahrainternational@info.gov.bh. Thank you very much for watching us, and we'll see you next week with another episode of Inside Edition.